Millions of people travel to Jamaica every single year for a single purpose: to sit on a beach. The prevailing narrative treats the island as a simple, laid-back tropical escape. But functionally, that perception misses the reality of what this landmass actually is. It operates as a highly concentrated, biologically isolated subsystem. The island of Jamaica exists as the exposed peak of a massive, submerged mountain range, plunging thousands of feet into the oceanic abyss. This model shows the topological scale. Removing the water reveals the bathymetry. The terrain vaults straight from the deep ocean floor into high-altitude peaks. Looking at this small footprint, a discrepancy emerges. How does an area this small produce such a massive share of the world's culture? To answer that, we need to map the island vertically. We are going to build a structural model, starting at the geological bedrock, moving up through the ecological zones, and finally into the socio-political layer. Viewing this terrain as a vertical stack, rather than a flat map, provides the necessary framework to decode the origins of its disproportionate global power. We begin at the highest elevation points, the Blue and John Crow Mountains. The extreme altitude of these peaks forces moisture out of the incoming trade winds, generating a highly specific microclimate defined by constant cool temperatures and heavy, localized rainfall. Because this microclimate is isolated by the ocean below and the steep slopes on all sides, it acts as an evolutionary incubator. Biologists call this biological endemism, a state where species evolve to survive in one precise location and exist nowhere else on Earth. This diagram illustrates a prime result of that endemism, the Homerus swallowtail. It is the largest butterfly in the Americas, easily identified by its scale and yellow and black coloration, and it survives exclusively within this high-altitude zone. The extreme fragility of this habitat and the endangered status of species like the Homerus drove the United Nations to designate this exact mountain range a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015. The geological isolation forced biological innovation, and that exact same mechanism, the altitude-driven microclimate, created a strict set of parameters for human agriculture. As human populations began to cultivate the island, they utilized these high elevation zones for highly specialized crops. The constant cloud cover and rich soil of the Blue Mountains delay the maturation of coffee cherries. This slower growth cycle develops a distinct, highly sought-after chemical profile. The environmental requirements are so rigid that the resulting crop is heavily regulated. Similar to how true champagne must originate from a specific region in France, coffee can only bear the name Blue Mountain if it is grown within this exact microclimate. Moving down the mountain slopes to the lower elevations, the agricultural model shifts. During the 18th century, the British Empire utilized the flat, tropical terrain to maximize raw material extraction. This photograph from the era shows the scale of that extraction: massive harvesting operations designed to strip out two primary cash crops, sugarcane and ginger. The sheer volume of this agricultural output was built on the systemic forced labor of enslaved populations. This flowchart tracks the colonial supply chain. When the abundant raw sugar and local ginger harvests were combined, the result was the industrial-scale production of ginger beer. A secondary commodity chain emerged from the island's cacao plants. When local cacao was processed and mixed with milk, a completely new beverage was formed.
British-Irish naturalist Sir Hans Sloane historically claimed credit for inventing chocolate milk after encountering drinking chocolate here in the 1700s, though indigenous and enslaved populations were utilizing the combination long before his arrival. Today, modern Jamaicans have reclaimed these colonial-era exports. Commodities born from an exploitative economic engine are now tightly woven into authentic local holiday traditions. The global prevalence of these everyday items is the direct result of a unique geographical climate subjected to a relentless colonial extraction engine. The legacy of that era physically shaped the island's modern political geography, dividing the landmass into 14 distinct administrative regions called parishes. The scale of these districts varies wildly. St. Anne covers nearly 470 square miles of terrain, while the capital parish of Kingston is compressed into just 8. This heat map shows the modern socio-religious infrastructure spread across those parishes. Today, Jamaica contains the highest density of both churches and rum bars per square mile of any nation on Earth. This hyper-dense social network found its modern identity in 1962, when the nation officially broke away from British colonial rule. But the push for autonomy began decades earlier. In the 1930s, the writings of Jamaican-born Marcus Garvey laid the groundwork for Rastafarianism, establishing a powerful religious and cultural movement rooted in the African diaspora. This high density of churches and public houses provided the essential infrastructure for artistic collision. Religious choral traditions and the rhythmic energy of the bar scene acted as constant, immediate feedback loops for musicians, forcing the rapid stylistic transitions from ska to rocksteady and eventually to reggae and dancehall. Reggae acted as a global broadcast system. Artists like Bob Marley utilized the genre to export local spirituality, political resistance, and Jamaican culture to the rest of the world. The geographical proximity of these social institutions created a unique environment for cultural exchange. It allowed hyper-local ideas to iterate rapidly and scale into massive international movements. We can now see the entire vertical model, a submerged mountain generating extreme elevation, which creates a highly isolated microclimate, which in turn fueled an intense agricultural economy and eventually supported a hyper-dense, highly productive society. This graphic illustrates the final discrepancy. On the left is Jamaica's actual physical size. On the right is its footprint on global culture. The mathematical ratio between the two is staggering. That same statistical anomaly extends into athletics. This small population consistently produces the fastest sprinters in human history, thoroughly dominating global Olympic track records. The athletic yield is so high that in 1988, a tropical nation with zero native snowfall successfully organized and exported a fiercely competitive bobsled team to the Winter Olympics. Even British pop culture owes a debt to the island's environment. Author Ian Fleming wrote the original James Bond novels during his annual stays at his Jamaican estate, Goldeneye. The island's infrastructure is also highly adaptable. In 1994, Jamaica established the first official government website of any Caribbean nation. The colors of the Jamaican flag encode these layers: yellow for the sun and natural wealth, green for the agricultural output of the land, and black for the creative strength and history of the people. Jamaica operates as a highly efficient, high-yield incubator. Its distinct geological constraints forged a cultural engine that continues to output an extraordinary volume of global influence.